This week on London Real, we have Ivan Farneti, board member for Glory, World Series of Kickboxing.
Kickboxing is, I would say, the most beautiful combat sport on TV. The fighters are really what we are all about. This is as aggressive, as fantastic, as in-your-face action.
Judges scored about the same, 30-20.
How do we make our stories relevant? A tournament is a story in itself. You watch time compressing itself into one night.
Please welcome Andy.
Not knowing technology means right now not knowing your customers. How do we get under the skins of our fans into their hearts? People that succeed in this business are those that, love the sport, love what they're doing, love their fighters, love their fans, without compromise.
London Real presents Ivan Farneti, Glory Kickboxing.
The difference between a good company and a bad company is the people that work in it.
Look out, folks. It's going to be a fight because we got the guys from the Glory World Series of Kickboxing on this week to talk about their business. And if you're fans of MMA and the UFC like I am, I think everyone appreciates having an alternative to the weekly events in mixed martial arts, and that is kickboxing. These guys at Glory are not messing around. They spent the last 2 years taking what was kind of a K1 brand of an exciting format of 3 rounds of 3 minutes each and making it their own, introducing these old school 8-man tournaments where 8 guys go in to fight in one night. The winner wins 3 fights. Some people like Joe Rogan have called this a bit brutal and hard on the body, and he definitely has a point, but you also have to admit that it's very exciting. It provides for a brilliant narrative and something that you can introduce new fight fans into the sport, if they don't understand the nuances of striking like kicks and punches. So I really love what these guys are doing. They're kind of very tech savvy, and they understand that you need social media and basically web delivery of their content in order to survive today. And I just like the fact that they're bringing it. And I got to sit down with Ivan Farneti, who is a board member for Glory. And I actually train here at Urban Kings in London, and the guy that owns that gym is one of the founders, Pierre. And it was just nice to sit down with those guys and find out where they're coming from. They just had an event in Los Angeles, Glory 17, which came really strong. They had Mirko Krokop in the house, and if you're a fan of the old Pride days, then Mirko will always have a special place in your heart. Also, they've signed recently Pat Barry from the UFC, Mr. HD Hyper Die, who we're going to have on the show when he gets his ass to London. And so I really like what they're doing, and I like a good set of striking. I love jiu-jitsu. I'm a purple belt myself, but I also love the striking game. And so when Glory brings it in this really fast format, it's something that I think is going places. So hope you enjoy the show. Please support these guys and watch their events, because I think it's a great alternative to MMA and the UFC if you want something different. To be honest, boxing is putting me to sleep. I'm sorry, Floyd Mayweather, but that was the last pay-per-view I'm going to buy of you because I'm tired of waiting 12 rounds for a decision. That's what I like about the UFC, especially in the prelim rounds. You don't know what's going to happen. It could end at any second. So I like it that we're going to keep fighting exciting, and I hope you enjoy these guys on the show and enjoy what Ivan has to say. I want to give a shout out to one of our new partners, and those are the gentlemen at Monkey Nutrition. And these guys are a supplement company with a new way of doing things. They have the right attitude when it comes to eating clean, training well, and then supplementing yourself in an intelligent manner. And that means only putting the best stuff in your body. And as I get a bit older, I notice now that it makes no sense to put any kind of garbage in your body because you're going to pay for it. I wish I was doing this in my 20s and 30s. You see a lot of MMA fighters now that are really strict on their diet because they know that every bit helps. And if you're lifting or doing anything athletic, you should have the best stuff in you. So check these guys out. There's a link here below. They have a great attitude when it comes to business. They have a fantastic amount of content as well. And they're going to be be writing a bi-weekly blog for us with some of their workouts, what they call brutal workouts, and their videos as well. And we're going to be getting a lot more of information from them. And also when it comes to nutrition, they're very intelligent about the protein powders that they research, and the stuff that goes into one of their products, which is Primal 26, something I use, the vanilla flavor, about 3 times a week after my muscle up workouts. So the muscle up's coming along. We're getting somewhere with the rings, almost there, so I'm going to keep you posted. And so stay tuned for more from the guys at Monkey Nutrition, and we'll let you know what's happening from there. From here, I'm going to widen out here a bit and show you the latest thing available on London Real, and that's the t-shirt. Yo, check me out. Yeah? The London Real t-shirts are finally in the house. If you want to pick one up, it's the guys at Char Grilled t-shirts that are supplying these. They got a good vibe, and I really like those guys. You can pick them up on our website. Just click on the gear tablet, and it'll take you to where these are. You can order them in your sizes, and they'll ship directly from you. And just kind of excited to see these branded out there. If I see you on the streets of London with a London Real t-shirt, then I'll give you a hug, and you got that in writing. So I'll probably give you a hug anyways if you stop me, but just make sure that's a bet and a promise. So check it out, support the show with the gear, and thanks to the guys at Char Grilled. They got a bunch of other great designs and a great company they got going on there. And as I continue walking the mean streets of Shoreditch here, I wanted to shout out to the guys that brought us that website, and those are the guys at Squarespace. You know, they're an all-in-one platform that makes your website look fantastic. And let's face it, these days, you got no excuse not to have a great-looking website. It's got to be pumping. It's got to be what I call 3.0 these days, otherwise no one's going to want to even talk to you. So get yourself sorted, go to Squarespace, and you can start for as little as $8 a month. You can even design your site without even putting any money down. And when you go to buy, use the code London, get 10% off. We're big fans of those guys. If you want to check out our website, you can search by episode. You can see all of our interactive video. So those guys know exactly what time it is, and a big shout out to them. And that's it, man. We got a little rain here coming on a summer day. Otherwise, we've had great weather. And I just want to give a final shout out to my boys at Bulletproof. Dave Asprey in the house, making the most fantastic coffee there is, with the minimal amount of molds and toxins to make me feel great all day. I'm doing mine iced these days. I poured it over ice after talking to my man Zach Garcia, and what a great suggestion. It's a great way to cool it down. So pick up some of that coffee. As you probably know, you mix it with grass-fed butter and a brain octane oil, and you get this fantastic drink. But they're more than that. These guys are all about your biology, the best way to sleep, the best way to hack yourself. So thanks to those guys. Check them out at Bulletproof, and there you go. I'm going to keep this summer walk to a minimum. Everybody's looking at me strange as I talk to this camera. We've got a very special guest coming up next week. It's Mr. Peter Joseph in the house, the creator of the Zeitgeist movement, a gentleman who I've been watching for years, and it was a real honor. I sat down with him, and we had a big heart-to-heart and talked about pretty much everything under the sun for almost 2 hours. So I just don't think he does many interviews, and we were honored to have him. It's a special guy who was really the creator of a very special movement, and one that's even more relevant today. So stay tuned for that. As usual, if you can like this, leave us a comment, share it with your friends, subscribe on YouTube. That just hooks us up and helps us spread the message. Send me an email, brian@londonreal.tv. Pick up some gear, get that t-shirt, represent London Real. And until then, it's about the journey, and I leave you now with the folks from Glory World Series of Kickboxing.
Shall we do this?
Let's do it.
Okay, here we go. This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Mr. Ivan Farneti, who is a board member for Glory, which is an international kickboxing promotion founded in 2012 that airs in the USA on Spike TV, here in the UK on BT Sports. You guys just completed your first pay-per-view card in Los Angeles a couple weeks ago, but you guys are not new to this game. That was your 17th event. You hold them all over the world. You guys don't mess around. It's places like Tokyo, Tokyo, Istanbul, Milan, all over the U.S., Chicago, New York City. You guys have been everywhere. Your last pay-per-view, you guys had an 8-man tournament. You had Mirko Cro Cop fight, who is a guy I've been watching since the Pride days. I couldn't not watch that fight. And he's just on your prelims to show how strong you guys roll. You're putting Mirko on the prelims. We'll talk about that. You had a big attendance at the show. I know Joe Rogan attended, Nick Diaz, Josh Barnett, Evander Holyfield, Dolph Lundgren. If you're not in the MMA world, these are some of the top announcers and top fighters in the game, top actors or top boxers. So it's a big deal. You've signed fighters like Peter Ertz, Remy Bonjasky, Semi Schiltz, Pat Barry. These are all guys that are known for Dutch kickboxing, former MMA guys. You, Ivan, are also a board member at Seed Camp, which is, I guess, a tech incubator is how you would describe it here in London. We've had Carlos from Seed Camp on my other show, Silicon Reel. We know that scene very well. Ivan, thanks for coming and welcome to London Reel.
Well, thank you very much. It's
a good intro, right?
That's fantastic. Fantastic. Never had such an intro. I have to, short of having a ring announcer kind of calling out my name. Actually, when I was a young guy, I was actually a practitioner of martial arts. I've done semi-contact and point karate. I've done Shotokan. And in those days, we didn't have really big entrances. But in one particular Italian championship, we were allowed to bring in some music. And I had the Fugees, Ready or Not, Here I Come. That was my walk-in song.
That was your walk-in song.
That was my walk-in song.
That's pretty good. I don't remember other fighters coming out to that song. It's very appropriate.
We asked the fighters which song they like. And in most cases, they have some of their own songs. And it's iconic. And, you have Remy Bonjasky, theme song that comes out. It's like Sergio Leone. It's really great.
Oh, is it?
But in some other cases, we actually create tracks, bespoke tracks for some of our fighters. And we worked on one for Giorgio Petrosian, and there are lots of other things. But I asked if they wanted to have the Fuji song, and so far nobody's a taker. So
really,
I guess we'll wait. But
my old jiu-jitsu instructor and boxing instructor, he came from South Africa, and he told me once that he came out to to Boy George's "Do You Really Want to Hurt Me?"
That's fun.
And I was like, okay, that's some next level stuff, because it's such a melodic song.
Yeah, no, completely.
But okay, so you went to walkout songs with me. Your event in Los Angeles, Gareth A. Davies from the Telegraph was there.
Yep.
He was our guest about a year and a half ago. Gareth was crazy. I had him here with former MMA fighter Pete Irving, and he described your event. He said, quote, "There is a feel of the early UFC days about glory. The action is raw and comes thick and fast." Spoken truly like Gareth Davies. Can you tell me, how did Glory get started? How did you get to be a part of it? 2012, that's 2 years ago. That's not a long time.
Yeah.
I remember the old days of K1, but the K1 has since kind of died. You guys seem to pick up the slack.
Right.
Tell me about Glory.
So Glory really was is the brainchild of Pierre Andouran, the founder of the company, together with Scott Rudman and Marcus Luer. They looked at K1 when things weren't going too well for them. Pierre was and still is a huge fan of the old style kickboxing. He went to events in Japan. As a fan, he was sad to see such a great product disappear. As a business guy, he looked at that as an opportunity to pick up where somebody else has left, and maybe renew the concept, freshen up some of the ideas, and put new capital to continue build the sport. As it proven impossible to buy the brand or to buy the company. As a business guy, what you do, well, you start to take out the assets that you can put your hands on. And as fighters, hadn't been paid, and there were lots of issues and animosity with management, Pierre and the early founders of Glory decided, why don't we start to approach the fighters and give them a new home and a new brand and a new logo to fight for, and make sure they get paid. And therefore, they start to approach, the management companies of those fighters, and start to acquire those rights, bring them on board. The next step was to ensure that once you have the raw ingredient, the talent, you need to be able to stage events around the world. So they bought one of the management companies that were, It's Showtime, that were already staging events in Europe. So putting together all of these ingredients, and this was really 2 years ago. How did I came into this? Well, Pierre and I know each other. We have common friends. Sometimes we train together, although he's a much better kickboxer than I am.
I met Pierre at Urban King's Gym, which I think he owns right here in London. He had an event with Anderson Silva there about a year ago. I got invited to that. So
yeah, I was there when Anderson said
there.
that if kickboxing was around a few years ago, he would have been a kickboxer.
Right.
So yeah,
you
Pierre,
knew each other.
Yeah, Pierre and I clicked from the moment we met. You know, we in our first day when we met, we started talking about Remy Boniansky fighting in Tokyo and all this sort of stuff. And we're both super fan of Remy and
how great male friendships are founded by talking about fighting, right?
Absolutely. There are normally
what we just did for 10 minutes.
It's either women or fighting. For some men, those are the topics. And
women are too complicated.
Yeah, way too complicated. Fighters are easier. And, I remember looking at some of the pictures of Pierre and friends, going to Tokyo, hanging out with Peter Ertz and hanging out with Remy Boniansky. And I was on my way out of my previous job. I've been a venture capitalist for 15 years with a London-based tech fund. And I spent most part of my career working with some of the smartest guys, building startups, going against, the giants of tech. And, talking to a guy like Pierre, who's got this incredible vision and charisma and the ability to execute a plan, pretty quickly I got, talked into saying, okay, look, I've been telling entrepreneurs what you should do to build your startup and seeing a lot of the, good things and bad things that happened in early stage companies. So I thought, maybe this is my time. I never had the call to be an entrepreneur, but joining an entrepreneurial team with Glory was a great chance. And so we roll up the sleeves, threw out the rule books from the old days, changed side, went on the other side, and really, get the feeling for what our startup in a complex industry like entertainment is. And so we started, and the very first thing is, how do we position Glory? What is Glory? And 2 years ago, Glory was a great word. Glory, some people talk about the fact that we bought United Glory and Golden Glory and we used the name. The truth is actually different. We wanted to find a name which is inspirational, and we both, all the team at the time loved Pride, and we thought Pride was such an inspiration, both as a product, to the point that even today you can see guys in the UFC, Dana White himself wearing the Pride.
Shirts,
you see Lorenzo wearing a Pride T-shirt. Yeah. It's one of those brands that you want to be associated with. So we thought, okay, Glory is a good word. It's got inspiration. It's clean. It's an ambition. So. We use that word, and the next step is, okay, how are we positioned? In the world of sport entertainment, you can really choose between being on one side a pure entertainment outfit. WWE has created a phenomenal business, one of the best export that America has in the content business around the world, and it's pure entertainment. Physicality is there. You are a fantastic athlete. But the story is scripted. It's entertainment. It's like Cirque du Soleil done in the ring.
Right.
On the opposite side of the spectrum, you had the UFC, and they had paved the way and proved the fact that a true grit, a real sport can be positioned in the marketplace where nothing is scripted. And the guys at the beginning had a fantastic vision of positioning with as real as it gets, right? To differentiate that from WWE. So for us, it was a choice. In a way, we could have positioned it a little bit like the old days of maybe K1, where some of the matchups with Akebono and, just for entertaining the Japanese public. But
right, because the Japanese always liked a bit of a freak show and the giant against
and
the huge
Hongman Choi and all those guys
over 300 pounds or over 350. Right. Okay.
And we thought maybe we would do that at some point, but our ambition wasn't just to create a new company. We wanted to make sure that we could bring the sport of kickboxing to the level of knowledge, to the level of penetration in various markets. We really wanted to build a sport in North America, and
North America is key. Is that
both in sport and in TV. Look,
such
look what
a huge
we watch,
market, right?
What we watch on TV in Europe and around the world. We watch whatever was hot last season in America.
Right, on television, yeah.
On television. Right. So, and in sport is no different. A lot of the big franchises.
Except for football.
Well, maybe this is the one time when football goes back into America from Europe and from South America and Asia. And maybe Glory is similar. So kickboxing was bigger in Europe, huge in Japan. And our bet 2 years ago was, can we actually get this product to look good on TV, get the fans to understand the stories behind it, get the rules, get to know the fighters, get to know the man behind the fighter, buy into the fact that this is as aggressive, as fantastic, as in-your-face action as other combat sport, and give it a chance. Because with kickboxing, the way we interpret kickboxing, it doesn't take more than 3 minutes to decide whether you like it or not. And we positioned it really as a sport. So we don't talk about, the fictional character of, The Rock or, Hulk Hogan's and stuff.
Right.
We talk about athletes. We talk about their stats.
A wrestling phenomenon. Okay.
Exactly. We talk about the metrics, their KO ratio, what is their, ability to finish fights quickly. We talk about the style of martial art they train with. They talk about their camps. We use a lot of the ingredients, and we bring up a lot of the stories that, other combat sport, starting from UFC, have really proven that is the winning combination to get the sport under the skin of the fans, in sport in general, and in combat sport even more so. Unless you care about the man, the human, the person or the woman, you don't care about his or her style of fighting. And if you don't care about the man and not care about the style of fighting, you don't care if they fight in one organization or the other one.
Right. You have to be invested in the person or the organization doing the sport, right? Whether it's an Olympics, it's a national team, whether it's Liverpool or Manchester United, you grow up with that team. I grew up with Mirko Cro Cop. You need to be invested in the person, right?
Yeah, the human story. What is the guy that, Pat Barry now came from UFC into Glory and had a pretty rough welcome.
Start, right, yeah. Big fan of Pat H.D. Barry here.
We love Pat. And, if you look at Pat Barry, he's a fantastic human being. He's the kind of guy that you want to go out and have a beer with. You can spend the whole evening, I did, and, you can't have enough of the guy. He's just a really great human being. It also happens to be a great fighter and happens to have a huge heart, and is the kind of guy that will drive entertainment. It's sport business, it's sport entertainment business. And he knows how to entertain the crowd, inside the ring, of course, and outside the ring.
Which is just as important these days.
This is a major point. I mean, it's 2014, right? We have social media. We have the ability to do a podcast with your own iPhone and send it out to people. He gets this. Some of the American fighters get this even more than anybody else because it's the show business world.
I think the UFC was giving Twitter bonuses at one point. They might still do it. Every month someone gets the $5 or $10 grand Twitter bonus. And when they walk out, it has their Twitter handles on that. I mean, Dana was a big early adopter of that.
Yeah, Dana was sensational. I heard the story that he, the first time he did an event and he was on Twitter, he actually went off and personally thanked every single fan that tweeted during the event. I don't know if it's true, but I can tell you what, we've done the same thing. Every time a fan tweets at us or posts a comment on our Facebook page, and now we have more than 500,000 fans on Facebook, we try to thank each and every one of them every single time, because building the relationship between the brand and the fan is not an easy task unless you go through the fighters. The fighters are really what we are all about. Glory is going to grow if the fighters' brand in itself grow, and it's a symbiotic relationship. So we talk to them a lot. We give them pointers as to how to handle themselves in the dark period between the fight and the next fight. Fighters fight maybe 2, 3 times a year, but they need to remain relevant, especially for us as a new brand. We help them and we interact with them a lot. We are giving small bonuses for social media interaction, and they get it. And I have to admit, the American kickboxers, who may not be as well known internationally as some of maybe the Dutch guys, they are really leading the edge in terms of promoting who they are, making themselves relevant. And the good thing is now the tide raises itself also in Europe, where finally some of the European guys are really getting that sense of, we have to become relevant. If a fan doesn't follow me on Facebook, if a fan doesn't like my page doesn't follow me on Twitter, or doesn't like my page on Facebook, is not going to watch me fight, is not going to buy my pay-per-view when I become relevant, is not going to be my fan. And I think the American guys get this perfectly.
Yeah, you hear Dana White talk about it all the time, especially when fighters like Jose Aldo or Nate Diaz will complain about pay. And he's like, look, the fans ultimately pay you. You have to be a draw. You have to finish fights. You have to be a personality. And, you really have to promote yourself that way. Take, for example, this week, we've got Ronda Rousey fighting on Saturday. I can't get enough of her pre-fight interviews. I can't get enough of the UFC program where they're following around embedded. I don't know if you've seen this new. It's really raw, and it's even better than some of the old promos they used to do. I honestly, after the UFC, I can't wait to watch Dana White at the post-fight press conference. Is there something wrong with me? It's like the whole narrative I want in on. I want to hear what the fighters think afterwards.
I think you and I are probably what we describe as hardcore fans, right? We cannot have enough of any of this stuff, and that's why we do what we do. But I admit, I was watching the lead into Ronda Rousey's first appearance on the UFC with the fight with Liz Carmouche, and I was actually watching the countdown with my wife. And I have to say, my wife has been watching more fights than probably most wives around the world.
Fair enough.
Bless her. But we were watching the countdown, and we were emotional. The story got under our skin. It was job done. And when I got to Glory and we were talking about how do we make our stories relevant, how do we get under the skins of our fans into their hearts, I've actually used that footage and say, guys, this is how it's done. This is how you get not just to the hardcore fans, but also to the occasional or casual fans that would like the story of the person. And when you care about whatever she or he did when he was or she was young, and whether it was like a privileged upbringing or had some hard time, and how martial arts changed, their lives, and how their family is evolving, and why they're fighting for their nation, for their children, for whatever it is, then you're buying into their story. Then you are part of the show. Then you're going to, buy the pay-per-view, watch the event on TV, have your second screen up because you want to talk about your friends, about whatever you've seen, and it was amazing. And, we have some pre-fight interviews of some of the relatively unknown guys internationally, like, Joe Schilling or Wayne Barrett, two of the American guys coming up through the ranks of Glory. And, you look at their stories, you see them talking and telling why they're fighting, and you want to watch them fight.
Yeah.
You want to watch them win, which is amazing.
There's something really compelling about the narrative, because as humans, we love a narrative. That's why we watch things like Game of Thrones and we watch movies. But with a fighter, it's almost like it's real and it's immediate. Like they are going to fight on Saturday. And so you get to hear about their backstory. You get to see their training. And then there's going to be a definitive event that, like you said, is as real as it gets. It's unscripted. And so as humans, I think we find that really compelling. And there's also maybe pain involved. So it's not just a football match where everyone's going to switch jerseys at the end. There's real things on the line. So it's almost a perfect narrative, really.
And I think this is where, when we're sitting down and try to define what glory is, I think we wanted to take a page from, maybe the book of building startup companies. If you go against an establishment, if you go against existing competition, your product cannot just be feature differentiated. Oh, we have a little bit more of this and a little bit more of that. That's not enough to break through the cloud. So we thought really hard and came up with, the 8-man tournament and the 4-man tournament.
Yeah.
A tournament is a story in itself.
Right.
And it's amazing because we've seen people coming to our shows and we have a tournament and this, friends have never watched kickboxing before, never watched fight sport before. They don't even know if they're going to like it. Right. But they're friends, so they come along. And amazingly, after the first fight, they're puzzled. They don't know what hit them, and it's visually beautiful. Kickboxing is, I would say, the most beautiful combat sport on TV. It's like dancing, and they're watching. But then, after a few minutes, there is the second fight, and then these guys come back, and it's fighting again. Oh my God! All of a sudden, you have that emotional connection because you saw that guy win the previous fight.
Right.
You have a favorite. Right. You're taking side. You're getting inside the product. And we've seen wives of our friends, the most unlikely hardcore fans, literally on top of a chair, screaming out of their lungs in the final for, one of the guys they loved. We've seen a transformation of a non-initiated person into a fan in the space of 2 to 3 hours.
Right.
And this is the magic of the tournament in one night.
There's like an empathy that goes out because I saw that guy and he just fought and I know he got hit in the leg and now he's coming back again.
And he's got pain, he's bruised, and he maybe got dazed in the previous fight. So there is that emotion. And if you think about it, from a business or marketing point of view, when we were watching the UFC in the old days, and it was new, right? And you watch Vitor Belfort or Tito Ortiz fight, it would take you maybe a year to watch the same guy fight twice, sometimes 3 times. So before you could get a real fan of the guy, you need to watch him fight 2-3 times and win 2-3 times. And that took a year and a half maybe. Now with the Glory model, with a one-night tournament, you watch the same guy fight 2 or 3 times, depending if it's a 4-man or an 8-man tournament, but you watch time compressing itself into one night, into 2 hours. Right. You see the same guy twice and win twice. That empathy can get connected. That connection can get established.
So you
much
can
faster.
build. You could even build fighters very quickly. By their success in a tournament, you can build fans quickly.
I mean, look at the story of some of the guys that we had. Schilling in Los Angeles last year, came out, fought Shimizu in the first fight. Levin was fighting Wilnis in the other fight, got into the final, and Levin is the number one. Levin is a superstar in kickboxing. He moves like in the Matrix. The guy is amazing. And Schilling is the underdog. He's the clear underdog, but with the first fight, he won over his crowd. He was fighting in LA. The crowd was behind him. The emotional intensity of the arena was insane. He comes out and, first round is, tentative, and then he pulls out the Superman punch out of nothing. He floors, Levin. It's unbelievable. The crowd was insane, and then he does it again in the 4th round because it was a draw at the end of the 3 rounds. I mean, you can't script that stuff. You can't make it happen.
That's gold for
the
you.
guys have to do it, and all of a sudden, Joe Schilling was a name. Was a name in one night.
So you're taking a bit of your tech background and you have to really innovate to make your brand be recognized above the rest. Just so for people that don't know, your basic format is what, 3 3-minute rounds? So you get quick results and quick fights, just to let people know, because it's not like a 12-round boxing fight where things can really take a long time. Some people say boxing is too long.
Yeah. I mean, we love boxing, right? That's the original martial art for TV, right? But we want to see KOs. That's what sells emotion. And a 12 rounds is great. And we love to watch Mayweather. And I was at the Canelo fight, and it was really intriguing to see how even today, boxing can still get those emotions. But it's the history and everything else that goes with it. But when we designed Glory, we wanted to make sure that we can deliver a product that can be understood in 3 minutes. So the formatting, which is the standard fight, is 3 rounds by 3 minutes. We borrowed it a little bit from the Olympic boxing, right? It's a quintessential sport. Olympic boxing is a quintessential sport metric, and the 3 minutes by 3, makes it impossible for a guy to coast and to play safe. So all of our fights are insanely aggressive, and it's in your face, is non-stop action, because you can't afford to lose a round.
Right.
As the guy who sits on the couch with a bag of Doritos and a 6-pack of beer, that's what I want to see. So we really designed that for low attention span guys, and then if you get into it, you will start to realize that formula can be declined in slightly different versions. So we have the 4-man tournament, which can fit a 2-hour time slot for American TV. We have an 8-man tournament, which can fit a 3-hour slot for pay-per-view. Okay. And then we have, single fight nights, which we call super fight series. Right. Some fans call it prelims. We are really peculiar. We don't want to call them prelims because those are absolutely top-ranked fighters. They just get more points, and they get their access to the tournament later on. And then we have tournament final we have World Championship title fights, which are 5 minutes round. A little bit like, maybe in MMA. Okay. We want to have a different dynamic for the belt. and a 5-round is very, very different than a 3-round. And if you watched Glory 14 in Zagreb, probably the best fight I've ever seen in kickboxing in my life, when Andy Risti fought David Kiria for the belt, and Risti was up for the first 3 rounds with a knockdown, and Kiria, tough guy, Kyokushinkai karate background, just didn't want to go down, and in the 4th round he came back, and in the 5th round he floored 3 times Risti and won the belt. If it was a 3-rounder, we would have seen a good fight. It was a 5-rounder, and it was a phenomenal fight.
Right. So all these different formats. The 8-man tournament, for the record, the guy that wins it has to win 3 fights in one night, right?
Yeah, you saw the commercial. It says 8 guys enter the ring,
Right.
7 will lose, 1 will win.
And that's a controversial fight format. I know Joe Rogan has gone on record and said he doesn't like it because, you know, the possibility of injuries compound on each other. I also understand that you need to differentiate yourself,
Yeah.
and ultimately you need to sell tickets, or guess what? Fighters aren't employed, and then there is no business. So I don't know. What do you say when this criticism comes up? Or does it come up that much?
It's actually a very small minority, and it probably comes from the really, really hardcore knowledgeable guys that can understand, you know, the minutia of the game.
And is it two rounds for those early parts of the tournament?
No, 3 rounds.
3 threes for the tournament as well.
for the tournament. And I was sitting next to Joe in LA a
couple weeks ago, right? Okay,
couple of weeks ago,
right.
and
Did he change his mind?
No. I think he's resolved. I mean, and, you know, he spoke to me and said, "Look, you know, I don't know about this format. I understand that it's got an incredible emotional outlook for the fans, and you know, the fact that these guys come back and fight 3 times in the same night, it's insane." I think his comment is more, well, there are 2 facets to it. One is, you know, if a guy is seriously injured after one fight, you know, how can he fight again? You know, we have medical standards, we have, you know, medical team behind it. If a guy doesn't get clear to continue, we have a replacement fighter. So we always have like a replacement match that get fought earlier in the night. So another guy will step in. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen. The other thing Joe was talking about is, you know, do you get the best fight out of 2 guys that have already fought twice in the night?
Right.
And I have to say, you know, the final between Levin and Schilling, you know, proves that you can have an amazing fight even after, you know, 9 rounds, or 10 in the case of Joe, because he fought an extra round in the quarterfinals. It will be different. So the level of aggressiveness has to be tempered by the tactics. You know, is your stamina still up? Do you have a major shin injury or not? So the tactics will play a lot into that type of fight. But, you know, it's good. You can have a 3x3, you can have a tournament series, and you can have a 3x5 rounds, you know, final for the belt. So we really have a lot of different permutation. Eventually, if you win all of the above, well, you're the best fighter in the world.
Right. And here's the thing. We're talking about it, so it's already a success because we're talking about it, right? Because, you know, ultimately you need people to sit up and notice your product. And there needs to be a differentiation. Let's talk. Let me hit you with a few organizations you might have heard with before. Here's one called Affliction. Here's one called Elite XC. There's one called Pride, called K1. These are all organizations that tried to get into the fight business and then later realized it's tough business to be in. What did you learn from these guys? What have you learned in the last 2 years about being in the fight business? You know, Dana White always seems to laugh when someone tries to get into the MMA business because he knows how hard it is. How hard is it?
It's very hard.
Okay.
It is. It's really a beautiful product, but it's still a niche product. No matter what type of fight you're talking about, probably with the exclusion of boxing, right, which is mainstream. But even the UFC, to their own admission, you know, are not mainstream worldwide. They have an incredible unaided awareness, brand recognition by now, but they've been in business for 20 years.
Yeah.
So they got over the impossible odds of establishing a path to success. And it was, you know, the recipe was a lot of hard work, a lot of capital, and a bit of luck around the way.
Yeah, like the Ultimate Fighter of season 1.
Yeah, you
Dana
couldn't have-
admits that saved the company, and that was.
I mean, that was a moment of, to their own admission, that really changed the tide completely.
Right.
And all the other organizations, probably miss one of the key ingredients. And I think when we look at our own organization, we look at the talent that we have in the organization itself and in the ring, and we know that we have the right people in the right places. So that's a check. When we look at the capital, I mean, doing shows like we're doing doesn't come cheap. It's not an underground venue. We pay the fighters correctly. The production value of what you see are 2014 type of production values. So you need to have the ability to put out a calendar, go out to the various parties, whether they are broadcasters or sponsors or venues, and be a legitimate business that can stay and support itself going forward. So, capital, it's a really important part of the success factor. And then you need, a platform that is a multimedia platform, and people that really understand that is not just, TV is the king of everything. Without TV, there is no future. But it's not just TV. In 2014, you have social media, you have web, you have everything else in the MMA sphere or in the boxing sphere or in the kickboxing sphere, including talk shows and podcasts and what else. It's a 24/7 job. It's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. Actually, we can take the probably out. It is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Did you expect that?
When you look at it from the outside, we've all sat down on a couch watching Dana White, be Dana White, and we all thought, man, I would love his job. And
Right.
I can tell you, I'm not into Dana White's job at Glory, but I can tell you it's a tough job being a promoter, building a brand, building a sport like they did or like we're doing. It's a much tougher endeavor that anybody expected. And the rule in my old job as a VC is, when you talk to an entrepreneur, you always say, well, it takes twice as long and twice as much money. And
Right.
I think we're no exception. It's
Really?
going to take longer and a lot more money, a lot more effort.
It's funny because I was looking at your CV. You spent 12 years in the venture tech world, really. And I was like, you went from tech into, now you're not working in tech, you're working in fighting, but maybe you still are working in tech in a weird way. I know you run all the digital for Glory, but in a weird way, is this becoming a tech company like many media companies are becoming tech plays? We know the UFC has Fight Pass now, which is really exciting. Now they're featuring fights from Invicta. They're talking about featuring fights from Metamoris. Yep. That's becoming interesting. Is this a tech company?
In its heart, it's a media and entertainment company. But that's where you start, right? The UFC was that, but now they're becoming a big media company. So I think the ambition to control as much as you can of the value chain and get as much more, of that value chain to percolate down to your P&L is the quintessential objective of any business, and they know how to run their business perfectly. Not knowing technology means right now not knowing your customers. Our viewers watch us on TV, but they watch us on tablet PC, they watch us on mobile phones, they watch us online, they watch our streams, they want to consume the product everywhere they can. As a small company, we don't have yet some channels, which we're looking into. A mobile app could be the next thing to do, but also streaming through some of the console platform from Xboxes or going through Netflix. There are lots of different things. The point is, content has to be ubiquitous vis-a-vis the usage pattern of your user.
Yeah.
Our users are young guys. They have technology. They use technology. They're perfectly comfortable with it. And if we didn't know how to deliver to them through the means that they prefer, we would miss opportunity. So I'm running the digital division of Glory, and we are constantly monitoring what devices are being used, what the feedback are, and try to improve it. And UFC is pushing, they are the leader in the market for combat sports, so it's their job to be the innovator, if you like, and they're pushing the boundaries at the speed that's unbelievable. With Fight Pass, they're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, what do you think of Fight Pass? I didn't see that coming, and it had a few blips in the beginning, and now it's...
the idea of creating your own network, right? When you are a network owner, you want to own content because you know that once you have content, you own the customers, right? And sports content being DVR proof or almost DVR proof is the most important content in modern TV business.
Its value as a live event is...
Well, it's magic. It's live. It's magic, right? Nobody would watch the Super Bowl on a Monday. Nobody would watch a fight, the next day if you can watch it live. So how do you, go and position your product across time zones? We've been staying up at 2 o'clock, at 3 o'clock at night to watch UFC live for years, right?
Right. Here in the UK, we always have to stay up till 3 till it starts.
Right. And then you have coffee and Red Bull, and you stay up with friends, and it's hard. And I think with Fight Pass, they are bringing the most relevant content for the local audiences in their time zone. So they are shifting time to where it was. And I think it's a brilliant idea. It also creates much more shelf space for them. It's cheaper shelf space. It's a direct-to-consumer shelf space. They can get the interaction, measure it, understand exactly to the dime and to the second what's going on their network. And it's not a surprise that WWE has done something very, very similar with their network. Once you're a big company, that reverse process of integrating upward, it's something that you can do. You have to be careful because you can upset PPV providers, they can upset the networks, the TV. But once you're big enough and you own a content which is so precious, like what they have and what we hope we're going to build over the next few years, then you can dictate a little bit the rules or change the rules and follow where the technology is. Because at the end of the day, you have to deliver to your customers in the way your customer want to consume your product.
Right. It's interesting in this wave or this age of the internet being so prominent that television still factors in, and it probably will be for the next 10 years. It's still going to be such an important medium. I personally canceled my cable subscription here from Virgin, and I don't have cable television per se anymore. I made a conscious effort, but it's interesting to see how Dana and pay-per-view. I mean, that's their biggest revenue source by far, and that's done by the big telco providers. So he is at odds with them with Fight Pass. I haven't heard them say anything, but in the long run, there is conflict there, isn't there?
Well, I think they're putting out different tiers of content. They segment it correctly. I mean, I don't know who runs marketing there, but they have my admiration. I think they're doing a fantastic job taking all of the learnings from other corporation, other businesses, and applying it perfectly well to what they're doing. They're delivering the right content to the right people in the right way. And it does take segmentation. The concept of arbitrage is something they understand perfectly well. They have their mainstream, beautiful, pay-per-view product where it should be, and they have everything else out there. They understand the metrics perfectly well, and now they have more shelf space that they didn't have before.
Yeah, now you can watch Prides on demand. It's a fascinating concept to be able to watch UFC 1. You don't have to go back to the DVDs like I'm sure we all used to. You talked about educating America, because let's be honest, you have to get the Americans on board, or there is no company in the long run. It's probably true about everything these days. How has it been educating Americans in the art of kickboxing? Obviously, Dana spent the last 20 years introducing them to MMA. I would argue that you can't explain MMA in 3 minutes because it's very complicated. So in a way, maybe your job is a little simpler, but there was a history of kickboxing in America, I think like in the 70s and 80s, and then it kind of died out again. Obviously, Thai boxing was big in Europe and in Asia, but it never seemed to get there in America. How do you do it? And is this difficult? Is this like the World Cup, trying to teach America about football?
Well, if you pick the World Cup as an example, right? 25 million Americans watched one of the games last week when America played.
Oh, is that how it
biggest
was?
Number ever recorded. It took them 25 years to get there. So you can't change user behavior overnight. You need a careful plan. You need a lot of time. You need a lot of exposure to the product. And, as we said before, you need a moment of luck at some point, Bonner, Griffin, whatever it is that you have. But, when we looked at the different demographic and the knowledge level of the audiences, obviously, if you go to Japan, whichever the martial art is, you have a very surreal event where 10,000 people sit in complete silence at the edge of the seat. And when you see like in an MMA matchup, you see the grip changing on the wrist of the fighter, they're going for a kimura, for a sweep, and like probably 90% of the audience knows exactly what's going on, and they go in even more silence and shift just to make sure that they don't miss the action. Okay, that level of knowledge is unique to that market. You go to America and we talk about kickboxing, a lot of people, the young guys, have never watched it before.
Interesting.
Because even K1 wasn't really done in America. They've done some events. It was like more marketing for the Japanese events.
Yeah, they did one event in Vegas before
they
shut
did
down?
some, and
Right.
but they were not frequent enough to create a behavior. But then you see some of the people that have watched kickboxing, they might have seen WCL, where it was like a mix of full contact rules and point karate rules, and there was no cage, no ring. It was different, and the season was only on, I think, for a couple of years. That was Chuck Norris promotion, which I loved because that it's most similar to what I used to do when I was a young guy with point karate, and I loved it. But the older guys, the guy my age, probably remember Don Oshino Wilson and Bill Wallace, and those old guys with the shiny pants, the mullet, and some mustache. They look more like porn stars than they look like fighters. They were great, and I remember on my home, I was living in Italy, and I had on my wall when I was a teenager, a poster of Rob Kaman and Don Wilson and Samantha Fox and a Lamborghini, whatever it was at the time, a Countach. And it's part of my history. So, but the young guys don't know that even existed, and the movie, The Kickboxer, was a movie in the 80s. I heard they're doing a remake, so we're really happy. Right. So education of that audience comes from exposure to the product. And our job as promoters is to get the product on the best possible channel. We are on Spike TV, prime time, and that's great. Is to have collateral programming, interviews pre-fights, the countdown shows that we make, but also to have a guy like Duke Rufus, who's our technical commentator. Duke has been around in the industry. He's the trainer of Anthony Pettis.
Anthony Pettis, the champion right now in the UFC at 155. He has a school up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Fantastic, and he's doing a fantastic job for us. His credibility as the guy who's been there, as the guy who is there, is amazing. I speak to him every time we do events, and he amazes me the depth of knowledge. He knows the name of every trainer in Thailand and every training camp back 15 years.
Yeah, he has real legitimacy. He knows the Thai names of the fighters.
Yeah, I can probably spell it too.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. And he's got MMA appeal because he's got fighters in the UFC, which is an interesting crossover for you.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the legitimacy factor, and we measure fights. We measure fans' reaction to everything that we do, from the fights that we make and the commentators we have, the Glory Girls, everything that we do, we measure. And Duke comes out, as the guy that checks every boxes. Every fan, whether they're casual fans or hardcore fans, they find his comments so intriguing because he's got plenty of anecdotes. It explains why a low kick scores a point, and the different rules that we have. So more exposure to that rich quality of content will eventually get there. And let's face it, you need to have knowledge of jiu-jitsu or wrestling or some sort of ground game, sambo, to really appreciate fully the intricacies and the chess game that MMA is. With kickboxing, we have punches, we have knees, and we have kicks. It's fast and furious. You have jump kicks and flying knees and reverse kicks and all the stuff that you have seen in other martial arts, but you take away all the difficult stuff to understand. There is no clinching. Yeah. There is no ground game, and it's fast and furious. So it really doesn't take more than 3 minutes to decide whether you're going to watch the rest of the fight or not.
Yeah, it's like immediate reward. It's what the Yanks love. They love basketball where it's like, there's 2 points, there's 2 more points, there's 2 more points. They don't like a draw in a football match, typically.
I mean, for the UK audience of your show, I think there is an analogy with cricket. You know, cricket was a test game of cricket. Cricket was like 5 days, very slow and meticulous, a lot of chess games. And strangely enough, I'm the only Italian probably, that loves cricket, and I'm a huge fan of Sri Lanka. But, you know, and then the ODI and the 2020 models came out where, you know, the 2020 game changed completely the game of cricket.
Right. And
Perfect
this
for
was
television.
A one-day match. It's more like a 4 or 5 hour
match. It's only a few hours.
Yeah, I went to one,
And you have colorful outfits. You have girls jumping and music and confettis and explosions. And it's a show. It's a full-fledged show. And it's working fantastically well. It's completely different. And we think that we are that evolution of martial arts that have their own rituals. And, you know, if you watch Muay Thai, it does require the knowledge of what's behind and the rituals and everything else. And I love it. And when I go to Thailand, I can't have enough. But we wanted something that takes less effort to like.
Right.
And we think we have that right now.
And if you look at the UFC over the last 10 years, I mean, it has become more of a stand-up sport, you know, and even look at Pride. The old days in Pride, it was a lot of ground time. We remember the beautiful high kicks of Krokop in Pride, but there was a lot of those 10-minute rounds where there was a lot of nothing going on. So, you know, I think the UFC is becoming more striking-oriented, more standing up, and so is it just a natural progression that Glory is going to take advantage of the fact that people want to see that? Because I like to see a good brawl in the UFC. I don't necessarily like to see a lot of ground time, and I'm a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, and I love ground.
I mean, I train in my spare time in ground. I can't pretend to be an expert in jiu-jitsu, but I love it. I do watch the no-gi contest, so I get it. And, you know, to me, it's not a problem. But you and I are, you know, maybe minority. And, you know, when you read articles on MMA, the only criticism that you see systematically is, well, now that there is so much content, I need to be selective. I want to watch the best fights. And, you know, when the fight goes to the ground a lot and there is passive defense and, you know, there is no attempt at submission, people don't understand it maybe, or they get frustrated. And in the old days, we would watch every minute of it, right? Because the next event was 3 months away.
Yeah, supply and demand. There was no supply.
Now you can maybe skip to the next fight and you have a striker, and, you know, maybe that's what best. I mean, the UFC knows how to run their business better than anybody else. If you expect to see ground game in Glory, well, you're not going to see that. Right,
of course, you guys don't do that. How was your first pay-per-view event? How did it all go? Yeah, how was it?
We were blown away by the reaction of the people that we had. The fighters delivered. You know, the 8-man tournament was sensational. I'm obviously a partisan of my own product, but, you know, I wasn't partial to the fights, and I had my own favorite, and I had to keep it, you know, inside because I can't express it. But, you know, I was blown away by what those guys pull out, and the world title fights, they were amazing.
And you guys had 6 hours of fighting that day at the LA Forum,
It was a long day. Probably next time we'll maybe reduce one fight. It was a long night. But, you know, I was talking to Lyoto Machida. I was talking to Joe Rogan. I was talking to, you know, all of the, you know, celebrities that we had, and they were blown away. And these are, you know, people that have watched fights all their life. And, you know, the reaction, the genuine reaction of the public, I mean, when the final of the 8-man came up, everybody was on their feet, everybody was screaming. You know, we were in LA a year earlier, 8 months earlier with Glory 10, and I'm pretty sure that every folk who was in the audience back then was in the room as well. And, you know, look, a fantastic show. We were very happy with it.
Okay. What's up for you guys in the next year? And what do you have to watch out for? What would you say is you know, the biggest problem you potentially will have?
Well, we need to make sure that we are running a good business. So we need to, you know, at the beginning we thought, can we deliver a product? Can we put it together? So step number 1, check done. Now we know we can deliver a great product. Right. Step number 2 was, can we deliver a great product everywhere in the world? So can we deliver that? And now we know we can. The third is, when we deliver it around the world, can we satisfy all of our key stakeholders, TV and fans, and make sure that they get a great experience everywhere around the world? And the answer is yes. And now I think it's more fine-tuning this recipe, make sure that economically everything is done properly so that we can continue to operate and get better and better and have more opportunities to invest our capital, both financial and human capital, in extending what we're doing with maybe there is a word called reality TV show. We don't know exactly what it's going to be like, but the intention is to explore that because, we know it's part of the whole experience. As a kickboxing fan, you want to know who's the next generation, want to know a little bit more about it. So I think it's more fine-tuning the model that we have, which we think is the correct one, and, expand the brand into different areas to make sure that we have more depth and more breadth of our own product. I think that is the key. And in terms of what we need to watch out for is, we're still a small company. We're a 24-month-old company. Yeah. And sometimes we want to run. And sometimes we have to remember that first you have to walk, make sure that your ankles and legs are strong and stable, and then you can start to run a little bit faster. So I think making sure that we focus on our core business, doing things right, make sure that we keep bringing the best talent in the world under the same umbrella. Boxing never did that, and there are certain matchups that we would have paid to watch, and we're not going to see. The UFC removed that problem, right? All of the best fighters are under the same umbrella. We want to do the same thing. Right. And there are still maybe 1 or 2 guys that we don't know of. There are Brazilian kids that can do fantastic capoeira, 720 kicks, and taekwondo specialists in Asia that we would love to have, and more and more and more. As long as we get the best fighters under the same umbrella and we can guarantee that the best will fight the best, I think we're going to retain our leadership in kickboxing.
Do you think you'll get more fighters from the UFC? I think Pat Barry and maybe Paul Daly. There's only a few fighters I think you've had that have come over. Or will you look other places, for smaller organizations or straight from the crib, as you would say, from like Thailand or Brazil?
I mean, it's hard to know what's going to be around the corner tomorrow. I mean, we used to get maybe 1 or 2 requests a month from fighters and managers. Hey, look, I'm 17-1 and I can fight, right? Now we have, I would say, probably a dozen contacts a week. Sometimes after a big fight, we have hundreds of requests for, hey, watch my kid fight or watch this guy fight. So I think we're awakening a sleeping giant. And I think, especially in the United States, there are thousands of guys waiting to get into the fight business, and there are only few spaces available because the existing organizations do not have such a high turnover. And how many places are available with decent money attached to it? Maybe 20, 40, 50 a year? I would guess there are maybe 15,000 professional or semi-professional athletes, fighters in America, North America alone, looking for their chance. So I think we're just awakening a giant here, and boxers that could add kicks and MMA fighters that may have their strong suit as a stand-up fighters, or other martial artists willing to put up 10 ounces gloves and go inside the ring. I think we can have all the choice, and if some big brand names decide and they're allowed to cross over, wouldn't you want to watch some of those fantasy matchups that, as young guys or as adults with a couple of beers on, we say, oh, I would love to see, Lyoto Machida fight, Artem Levin, was all over the blogosphere. Well, for me, for once, I would be very happy to pay to watch that fight.
Why not, right? Especially if it's a prominent striker, in the UFC, for example, and wants to come over for, kickboxing only rules. I mean, why wouldn't you want to see that?
By the way, Lyoto, good luck this weekend with Weidman.
I can't wait to see that Machida-Weidman fight. The UFC hasn't done a fight in Italy. That's where you're from. We haven't seen France sanction MMA. You guys have done an event in Milan.
Yeah.
Where do you think we are with Europe adopting, martial arts and paying for it? Germany's had a couple fights with the UFC there. Where are we at? And is that a big target for you?
I mean, Europe remains one of the regions where kickboxing has established itself, and Holland and Italy and France are really popular markets for kickboxing. And the reason is, first of all, because kickboxing has been on TV for many years.
Right.
Fans have watched it. There are gyms all around. I used to train just outside Milan, and there is a local event there that goes back to '93. Kickboxing has been in these countries for decades. They have their local champions, and if you bring Giorgio Petrosian to Milan, you will fill up a 10,000-seat arena. There is no doubt about it. If you bring him to Rome, you will still do the same thing. He's such a iconic fighter. If you go to Paris or anywhere in France and you bring on Jérôme Lebanet or some of the new Karim Gadji guys, I mean, you'll get a lot of fans because those guys are on TV often and they are name brands. They know who they are. UFC or MMA in Europe, I think, in the UK, you can't avoid MMA. I go to so many local promoter fight events, and there's good quality. BT Sport is doing a fantastic job promoting the UFC now.
Yeah.
And they're amazing. They're, getting phenomenal support. And with Fight Pass, I think it's going to get only better. I think generally speaking, Europe is still, a phenomenal opportunity for MMA. Eventually, regulations, will move to accept or not. And if they don't, there will be other opportunities in Asia and South America are, fantastic opportunity for everybody. And in terms of kickboxing, I mean, we don't have any issue from regulatory standpoint to organize events. And when we did an event in Istanbul, we had 10,000, Turkish fans coming to see Gökhan Saki. We had events in Milan with 10,000 fans watching, Giorgio Petrosian. And we had Krokop in Istanbul, and we had 10,000 fans watching him.
That's great.
So as long as we have the best of the best from each of the regional markets and we have a good TV deal in the country, we'll continue to stage events also in some of the European cities where we've been successful before.
I just want to finish off with a couple business questions. I mean, everyone looks at Dana White now as, a great businessman, and they have him out at Oxford giving speeches. And, a lot of the guys I've had on here that are entrepreneurs look to Dana as, for his business sense. So I was wondering if I could pick your brain. I mean, you were in the venture cap business for a long time. And if people are listening that want to start their own organization, what's bits of advice that you give to people that want to start an organization or try to build a brand? Are there some simple rules that you say?
I mean, I've had the privilege of working for, almost 2 decades with some of the best minds in business, some of the best entrepreneurs, some of the best managers. And, once you get on the other side, when, become operational, everything looks a lot more complicated. And my analogy is, when you are on the outside as an investor, as I was, you can see that is a washing machine. When you're an entrepreneur, you're inside the washing machine and everything else is spinning around you. So making the right decisions in those conditions is really, really hard. But I think, when you start a business, whether it's an organization or any business, right, you need to have the Holy Trinity. And everybody would agree that, you need to have a large market. Nobody wants to be a small market person. Nobody wants to get into, a tiny market that has no future. So you want to have a lot of people. A market is people. It's people with a will, a wish, an unmet need, and unsatisfied requirements, a point of pain. Big market is the first thing to look out for. The second is you need to come in with a completely different product. You can't be feature differentiated. You need to have something unique, something that it's you and only you. Because in most businesses, and in fight sport even more so, the winner takes all. And the third ingredient is the most important one. The difference between a good company and a bad company is the people that work in it. You need to have guys that have the passion, the integrity, the sacrifice, the long-term view to work hours that, you don't work in an established, 9-to-5 job. Fight business or promotional business is not a 9-to-5 job. It's a 24/7 job. You eat, sleep, and breathe, kickboxing from the beginning to the end. And it's not just the glamorous part of hanging out with the fighters, which is the part that I really love. It's everything else as well. It's a business made of people, delicate balances between the power struggle in the value chain, between injuries, fight card changes, sanctioning body, the whole lot, putting up a circus, a wandering circus like we do month in and month out around the world with hundreds of people moving around. It's only accomplishable with an exceptional team of people that love what they do. So those are my three.
I've never heard the Holy Trinity broken down
Holy
like
Trinity.
that.
If you ask Carlos, we'll repeat it exactly the same way.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have a lot of tech people on here, but I haven't heard it explained that way. With the Trinity, I guess that last part is really getting people that are dedicated to the organization and working long hours, right? It ultimately does come down to that, right?
I mean, we have people in every part of our business that love the sport a bit. Core Hammers is our matchmaker and head of talent operation, and Core Hammers is probably the most famous trainer of kickboxing around the world. He coached the best kickboxer that ever lived, Ramon Dekkers. He was his father, and he's been ringside of probably 19 world champion, from Rob Kaman and Ramon Dekkers, all the Dutch guys. And this guy has been out there forever. And when we watch fights together, when we see the clips of the next new kid coming out of Thailand, he's as excited as any of the young fan that we have. His passion is pervasive. His words are inspirational to fighters, to trainers, to staff in my department, in all the other departments of Glory. And having people like him in an organization is a privilege, and you can't replace some of those guys. His team works really, really hard. I mean, it's not just him. He's got a group of guys that work and, go through all of this application and, solve the issue that fighters have. And, it's fight business, injuries and transportation and whatever you have. And they work really, really hard. We are a global business, a small, but, global business. And people that succeed in this business are those that, love the sport, love what they're doing, love their fighters, love their fans, without compromise.
Ivan, for people that want to watch the next card or find out more about Glory, what do they do? What's the easiest way?
The easiest way is go online and type www.gloryworldseries.com
Glory World
and
Series.
stay tuned.
Okay.
Or follow us at glory_WS on Twitter.
On Twitter, okay.
And then it's Glory Sports International on Facebook.
Okay, and if there are fighters out there listening or people that want to get in touch with you, should they find you on Twitter or?
Follow me on Twitter. Is Ivan Farneti. It's my handle, and Twitter is the best way. I actually tend to answer to every single fan because I am one.
Right.
So, and you can ask me anything and fight stuff and events or whatever is related, and it's going to be a pleasure for me to reply.
I like how you guys are really embracing the social media and looking at it for the feedback. I would argue that if you were a 10-year-old company, you guys would be ignoring that. I mean, that's what seems nice about you guys is you have a fresh perspective. You're not coming from a promoter's background of boxing for 20 years, and you're really listening to your fans. Do you like to hear Rufus, or do you not, or do you like this? I saw your ring girls are wearing dresses at the weigh-ins, and I like that. I think it brings the class level way up. So
we actually did a small survey and make sure that it was appreciated, and we were wondering are we getting it wrong, and fans said they're classy, they're actually the common word is classy.
Classy.
And this is probably one of the attributes that we would like to use when we describe Glory.
Right.
It's a classy sport, is a gentleman sport, a little bit, if you like, and we like when we see fans coming to our events wearing a suit. It's perfectly fine. We like that.
See, I noticed.
Yeah, good.
And let's not forget. I mean, Dana talks about this too. I mean, the women fan base is important to the women watching you when you're, watching the Ronda Rousey preview you talked about a couple years ago. I've put my girlfriend through countless hours of MMA. I got my 10-year-old girl watching MMA. When the blood comes out, sometimes she runs, but otherwise she can watch. And that's a big part of your growing fan base is the women, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. When we've done some research, and there are more than 12, 13 million fans of kickboxing on Facebook alone, right? If you assume that Facebook is a good proxy for the world, which probably is, 13 million fans, self-described fans of kickboxing. And when we looked into the details, right, we started breaking it down, and we discovered that, there is an incredibly high percentage of female fans. Probably, I think it's 35 to 40%.
Wow.
And when we dug a little bit deeper, we discovered that a lot of the self-described kickboxing fans practice boxercise and kickboxing, power kickboxing in classes, right? They go to classes, and I'm sure you've seen this one in your gym, where these are office workers, students, and and immaculately the class is full of women, and it's maybe like 2% men, and the rest is all female, and they rub their hands even if they don't hit anything, and they do shadow boxing, and they do high kicks, and they sweat it out, and they have loud music, and they love it. They all wear, the camel pants and the branded T-shirts, and they get the whole look. They like that. Now, I know your next question is going to be, so are you going to add a female division
of course.
in Glory? So,
Dana said never 2 years ago, right?
so let me say never, so that maybe it's going to happen, right? I think right now, as I said, we need to walk before we run. We have 6 weight classes from featherweight up to heavyweight. We have more than 150, 160 fighters that we want to rotate and make sure we give good exposure, try to find the next superstars. We have our hands full for the time being. But, I would say never in this case, because the data would suggest that a female kickboxing product could have a life. And if you go online, you can find some of the female kickboxers, and those girls are amazing. I mean, they can hit and deliver and have all the full arsenal, incredible flexible kicks, and it's really, really fun to watch.
I have been supremely impressed with women's MMA. If I will go to a preliminary fight, we talked about there's so much UFC content these days. If I see a female fight, I'll actually go search it out and watch it, because these girls, I think they've been told their whole lives that they're doing a sport that no one cares about, and it feels like they're going out to represent their entire personality every time they fight, and it seems like they're on a mission of self-retribution every time they fight. So I'm a big fan.
I have to say, Shannon at Invicta is doing a fantastic job. I've been a super fan of Invicta. Marloes Konen is a good friend. Hi, Marloes.
She's great.
And I think she's to me she embraces the kind of the incredible compromise of a beautiful woman, a beautiful athlete, and an incredibly intense and competitive, fighter, all in the same place. And I have to say, when I watch Invicta online, I'm really impressed. I mean, those. I like the slogan, fight like a girl, and you watch it and I get goosebumps. And I've watched that slogan and I watched those promos maybe, 100 times, and it still gives me goosebumps. So they're on to something really good.
Yeah, I think it's a personality type we've never seen before. I don't think we've seen like you said, like Marloes or even a Ronda Rousey. We don't understand this. You can be a beautiful person here and a tough fighter, and they mix it so well. And I think from the movies and from what we've been told all of our lives, we've never seen this personality type. But it exists, and it's fantastic to watch. So
completely.
Yeah, very very bullish on that. The rest of the year for you guys, do we have a lot of events coming up, more pay-per-views? Do we know?
We're working on the second part of the year schedule.
Okay.
Believe we're going to have 4 or 5 events coming up.
Okay.
I'm so excited. We're going to have the lightweight tournament And God knows if Petrosian is fit, it's going to be great to have him back. He broke his hand last year.
Okay, all right.
So, Giorgio, good luck. Hope to see you soon. We have a welterweight tournament. And, some of the stars coming up in Glory are really in this division, with Joe Valtellini now owning the belt and everybody wanting a piece of him. And we have the heavyweight tournament still going on later on this year. And again, everybody likes the heavyweights. And
That is true, right? Is it the most watched weight division?
Well, we have minute ratings for all of our shows. And I can't tell you which one is the most watched division, but it may not be the heavyweights.
Okay. I believe it in Glory, it might not be, because there's just so much action.
Those guys were the superstars of the previous organization, but they were the only stars,
right,
together with the max, the 70 kilos. Now we have 6 weight classes, and the featherweight that we display, the contender tournament for the featherweight division at Glory 17 on Spike, did incredibly well, and Gabriel Varga, the Canadian guy who won the contender tournament, had incredibly good reviews online. His fights was unbelievable, and that's a featherweight. But the kid is a dynamo. I mean, he never stopped, and he's got trickery and really a bag full of martial art tricks that he delivers every time. Incredibly fun fighter to watch.
Love it. If you haven't watched Glory, get online and check it out and watch these fights. For me, it's great to see an exciting new sport, which is what you guys are doing, and that really focuses on striking. And we should have more of a choice in this world than boxing and MMA, in my opinion. So you guys are bringing it. Exciting new company. Ivan, thanks so much for coming by and telling us all about it. It's a great story. And you guys are in London too, so it's close to my heart.
My pleasure.
As we say on London Real, it's about the journey. If you're listening to us on iTunes, check us out on YouTube. And until then, all the best, Ivan.
Top.
All right, bye.
What we call reality is in fact nothing more than a culturally sanctioned and linguistically reinforced hallucination.
This week on London Real, we have Mixed Martial Arts Trainer of the Year, Mike Dolce.
Dolce Diet is a lifestyle-based approach to maximizing health, fitness, and longevity. It's returning to the basics. What has got our species to where we are today? If you don't know what it is, if you can't pronounce it, if it's some chemical term or name, get it out of there. There's no easy way, there's no easy path. I mean, life is about sacrifice and it's about reward. No pills, no powders, no potions.
Is it true you actually cut weight with them?
Absolutely.
Mike, that's crazy.
I'm not a fitness personality. I'm not a celebrity trainer. I'm not a TV dude. I'm not a spiky haired, look at my abs, fake tan kind of guy. We're teaching people how to be healthier, how to be better, how to change their body dramatically, but how to live these long, healthy existences. I still see myself as a white belt in the game. There's so much more for me to learn and continue to do.
On Sunday, London Real presents Mike Dolce, Living Lean.
I believe that I have the information, the experience to help every person on this planet in some way, shape, or form to achieve their goal.